Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the New York Yankees. We are about to begin the Yankees playoff run in the ALDS here in 2024. Yankees had an excellent regular season, 104-58 record, the best record in baseball by one game over the Atlanta Braves. Aaron Judge led the American League in home runs for a third consecutive year with 49, led the league in ribbies as well. Was in the battle for a Triple Crown for a while, but his batting average ended up dipping to 300. So we'll have to settle for leading the league in two out of those three categories as he tries to win a third consecutive MVP award. We also had a chance at a pitching Triple Crown for a while. Garrett Cole ended up leading the American League in ERA, ended up second in wins and second in strikeouts. Unfortunately, as you can see, he's out with a sore shoulder, and that at this point happened about 2.5, 3 weeks ago, back on September 20th. So he missed the final 15 games of the season, definitely missed out on 2 starts, may have even missed out on 3 starts if we decided to get real aggressive with him in trying to win that Triple Crown of pitching. So disappointing that both Cole and Judge came up short in their quests for truly historic seasons. But the most disappointing thing is obviously the injury to Garrett Cole, which will certainly keep him out of this ALDS, almost certainly keep him out of the ALCS if we're fortunate enough to make it that far, and could keep him out of the World Series if we're fortunate enough to make it that far in this season. And it's been a disappointing playthrough in terms of injuries. The Yankees have won the AL East both of the years of this playthrough, and I think we've made some good progress getting rid of some bad contracts and turning over the roster. But the injury situation has been pretty unpleasant. Giancarlo Stanton ended up missing most of the season, out with a ruptured MCL. Clark Schmidt, starting pitcher, missed most of the season with a ruptured UCL. Cole, as we mentioned, has been laid up for close to 3 weeks now and still has got another couple weeks to recover from that significant injury. So, and then we've also lost Evan Phillips, a good reliever who ended up injuring himself on the last day of the season. He's out for the playoffs. And Jason Dominguez, who particularly with the injury to Giancarlo Stanton was likely to be an important player on our postseason roster. You can see we brought him up in September and he hit 291 in 117 at-bats. He got injured right near the end of the season and is also out for the playoffs. So despite the dominant regular season, not necessarily feeling great about the Yankees' chances. This is the second consecutive postseason where our hopes have been dashed a bit by injuries right at the end. Last year, you can see Aaron Judge only ended up playing in 143 games. He hurt himself with about 2 weeks left to go in the regular season when he was chasing 62 again and was out for the playoffs. And then during our ALDS victory last year, Giancarlo Stanton got hurt and ended up missing the entire ALCS where we were knocked out. So we're in another real difficult injury situation again with a top offensive player and our top pitcher on the shelf. But we'll see what we can do and hopefully can get to a World Series, because if we do get to the World Series, there's a pretty good likelihood that Cole will be back and healthy for that. In the meantime, with the injury to Jason Dominguez, Andres Chaparro ends up making the roster as our 14th player. Only had 13 at-bats in the majors this year, 2 hits, but feel like he's the best option we've got with the injuries to Dominguez and Stanton, and the fact that we're dipping down to just 12 pitchers and moving up to 14 position players for the playoffs. And with Cole out, Dre Jameson, who we picked up in a trade with Arizona this year and pitched somewhat better for us after a slow start, ended up 5-4 with a 4.46 ERA, and Nestor Cortez are in the rotation for us. We'll see what happens. Would certainly feel a lot better about things if Cole was in the rotation, but unfortunately, that's not the hand that we've been dealt for these playoffs. One thing that could happen, there is potential that Cole's contract, $36 million a year for another 4 years after this season, as he gets into his mid to late 30s, could become a problem for us. And despite the injury, he went 17-5 with a league best ERA and WHIP, was named to the All-Star team. There is some chance that he could opt out of that contract this offseason since he's had such a good year. I don't think that he will, because $36 million a year for 4 years for a pitcher is still a lot of job security, but it would not necessarily be the worst thing in the world for building this team long term if Cole happens to opt out once the season is over. But our hope is that he'll be pitching in a World Series for us before it's over and maybe increase his value even more. But before that will become an opportunity for us, we're going to have to get by the Seattle Mariners. They took out the Rays, the Astros took out the Blue Jays, Cardinals swept the Padres, and the Mets took out the Cubs in the 4 wild card series. And we've got a chance against the Mariners now. 83 win team, so we won 21 games more than them over the season. You would think that that would bode well for us. We had the best offense in the AL, best pitching staff in the AL. They were 8th in runs scored and 4th in runs against, and we were 5-1 against them during the regular season. So even without Cole and Stanton and the other guys that are banged up, you would think that we should be a pretty good favorite, but we'll find out what happens next. And looking at the matchup here for Game 1, we've got Carlos Rodon on the mound, heads up the staff along with Cole, 14-7 record with a 3.01 ERA, led the league in strikes per 9, strikeout to walk ratio, quality start percentage, and FIP minus. So real nice year for Rodon. He did not end up being named an All-Star this year because he ended up getting put on the IL briefly just days before the All-Star game, or else I think he probably would have been named an All-Star. Going up against Matthew Boyd for Seattle, kind of a league average type pitcher, split the year between Arizona and Seattle, put up a WAR of 1 between those two stops. Certainly think that being at home and having Rodon on the mound favors us in this first game of the series. And if we're hoping to get back to another ALCS, pretty important that we get this series off to a good start. And unfortunately, not going to happen. A 4-3 loss. Michael King, after a brilliant year as our closer, looks like he took the loss in relief. We did get a home run from Judge, but we're clearly down. And yeah, we took a 3-2 lead into the 9th, and then they scored 2 runs. So Rodon pitched well, and a 2-run home run by Castillo for the Mariners in the top of the 9th to clinch the victory. So a pretty painful loss for us. Rodon was really good, scattered 4 hits and a walk over 7 1/3 innings. The youngster Yoendris Gomez came on, pitched well, and then King blows the save. He had such a good year for us as a closer too, 3-5 record, but 42 saves, 103 strikeouts and 64 2/3 innings with a 2.37 ERA and a WAR of over 3, SIERA of 166, as you can see. Just a great year for King, but he comes up short, perhaps at one of the least opportune times. And we've got Luis Severino on the mound for Game 2. Another pretty big-time pitcher for us, 15-10, although his 4.35 ERA this year was more than half a run worse than it was the season before. Going against Alex Wood, seems like despite his good control, average stuff, slightly below average movement. He was 15-9 with a 3.40 ERA, so he's had a really good year for the Mariners, but on paper at least would say that the pitching matchup here in Game 2 favors us, and certainly down 1-0, feel like we've got to get a win here behind Sevy in Game 2. And we do get a 4-2 victory. Looks like Severino outpitched Wood. Another homer from Aaron Judge, so that's good to see. We jumped out to an early lead, 3-0. They did come back with 2 in the 7th, but fortunately the bullpen did its job today. King bounced back with a save, did give up a hit and a walk, so he certainly hasn't been perfect. But Severino with a brilliant performance, 7 hits, no walks, 10 strikeouts over 8 innings, did what the team needed from him. Still not in the situation that we would like to be, heading to Seattle in a 1-1 tie rather than a 2-0 lead. But it is what it is at this point. I just want to make sure that there was still an off day today before I can move on to Game 3 of this series in Seattle. And this is where the pitching matchups can start getting a little dicier for us. We've got Dre Jameson on the mound. I mentioned we picked him up in that trade with the Diamondbacks. Average stuff, does have good movement and good control. Combined, he was 10-12 this year between Arizona and the Yankees, but he definitely at least had a winning record while he was with us. Certainly, if Cole and or Clark Schmidt were healthy, it's hard to imagine that he would be in the postseason rotation. But it is what it is at this point, and we're going up against Luis Castillo, who had a 9-9 year for Seattle with a 3.24 ERA, but he won 18 games a year ago for them. 4.9 WAR a year ago, 4.7 WAR this year. He's been a all-star 3 times now, including this past season. So pitching matchup today on the road definitely favors Seattle. Hopefully the Yankees can steal one. And maybe we did get to steal one. Gomez, the young reliever, gets the win in relief. It looks like Jalen Beeks with the save. Another home run from Judge. He's hit one in each game of the series. Oswald Peraza also knocked one out of the park for the Yankees. Ooh, this was a classic 13-inning game won by the Yankees 3-2, with 3 runs to take a 3-run lead in the 13th. Kind of reminiscent of that classic game in 1995 in Game 2 of the ALDS in New York between the Yankees and the Mariners. 3-run homer from Aaron Judge in the top of the 13th, and then the relief got the job done for the Yankees. Jameson was solid, quality start for him, and then after that, Mantiply, Lasaiga, King, Gomez, and Beeks combined to allow no runs over the last 7 innings of the game. So big win for the Yankees to kind of take home field advantage back. Clearly would hope that we can just win Game 4 here in Seattle before we have to head back home for a potential deciding Game 5. Nestor Cortez, 13-8 with a 4.17 ERA for the Yankees. Kind of an average-ish major league starter at this point on the mound for us against George Kirby for Seattle. Pretty even pitching matchup. Kirby was 15-10 with a 3.62 ERA, led the league in walks per 9 innings with that excellent control. Certainly would view Seattle as a small favorite being at home, and probably a bit of a favorite in terms of the pitching matchup, but hopefully we can steal another one here on the West Coast. And the Yankees do 5-1 win, Judge with his 4th home run. So Judge with a home run in each series, probably none bigger than that 3-run homer in extra innings to win in Game 3. Austin Wells, the rookie, also homers for us. So the Yankees fell behind 1-0, but then 5 runs across the 7th, 8th, and 9th to put the team into the American League Championship Series for a second game series, or for a second straight season. Cortez did a nice job, and then Lasaiga, Gomez, and Ron Marinaccio on with scoreless relief over the last 3 innings. So the Yankees get the job done. After that loss in the first game of the series with Rodon on the mound, was a little concerned that we could face a quick exit. But now maybe we get a little time to rest, a few days at least. Twins and Astros still playing today, and then they're a game behind in the National League. Take a quick look at what the Cole injury situation looks like right now, and he's down to 1 week, so I think it's unlikely that we're going to have him for the ALCS. But if we are fortunate enough to sneak into the World Series without him, pretty good odds that he'll be back for the World Series. And we do have a few days before this next series will start. If he gets down to a point where it's 3 or 4 games till he's back, certainly would potentially look at him as a game 3 or 4 starter for us in this ALCS if he does end up healing a little quicker than expected. And while we are awaiting the ALCS, international amateur free agents have been revealed. So we're going to spend a little time looking through these prospects. Certainly on the pitching side, Alexis Morello out of the Dominican. If he completely develops, looks like he could be a devastating pitcher. If that changeup doesn't develop, though, he's a potentially incredible reliever. Don't know that we'll end up bringing him on in terms of a contract, but certainly we'll invite him to training to hopefully get to learn a little bit more about him and get to know him better. Juan Rogel, also out of the Dominican, listed as a starting pitcher, but pretty unlikely with likely to have a 2-pitch arsenal that he'll be a big factor there. So I think we're certainly going to probably focus on the batters as far as the more interesting opportunities. Looks like, at least according to our scout, there's some pretty interesting players here. So we'll spend a little time with them and invite 9 more of the players to training camp to begin getting to know them a little better and hopefully building a relationship with them that can help us bring on some good new talent into our farm system in January. And we just added the other 4 players who our scout sees with 3-star potential or higher to our invitation, although it doesn't say that we actually invited them. Maybe I clicked on scout them instead of invite them. Yes, I did click on request scouting report, which is also important to do, but now we've invited them to training. And then I'll spend a little more time looking at whether there's any other interesting prospects who may not be as highly regarded as our scout. Certainly this guy here, Juan Canas, and Andres Castro, with decent combinations of potential contact and power, look like interesting guys to potentially at least bring into training. And I'm sure we'll find a few more. Jorge Robledo is a guy we hadn't invited yet. Does have potentially above average contact and home run power. He is a DH in the making, though, but certainly worth at least inviting him to camp. Massimiliano Bartoli, love the power. What's his glove look like? Pretty mediocre glove. Doesn't have a great work ethic. Just don't see a ton of potential there with him, so we'll probably save that invite for somebody else, even though the amount of potential power that he has is a bit tempting. 9th invite, we'll go with Alexis Garibay, center fielder with a little bit of power, a little bit of speed, does have good work ethic. He's got a nice arm out there in the outfield, probably more of a right fielder if he completely develops, and who knows whether it'll end up happening or not, but we'll find out. And there's really not a ton out there. Obviously, it's very early stages. Our scouting reports on all of these players are extremely inaccurate, but we will go back to that second starting pitcher, Juan Rogel, for our last spot. Think he's going to be more of a reliever, certainly with only a 2-pitch arsenal. That would be where I think he would end up. But he is a 16-year-old, ground ball focused, already throwing in the low 90s. And he's only supposedly looking for about 180,000. So if we think that he might be a decent reliever down the line, and we could get him for just a very small chunk of the money that we've got set aside, the 4.75 million for international amateur free agents, then bringing a guy like him on board might make sense if we can do it at a low price. So you can see we've got a list of 10 players that we're going to bring to camp. Already have average relationships with Jorge Moreno and Juan Padilla. Our scouting accuracy is low to very low on all these guys, so we'll run the first practice, hopefully get to know things a little better, and definitely building some of those relationships, particularly with Moreno and Padilla. So we'll have another chance to revisit the international amateur free agents in November, but hopefully we're off to a decent start with the players that we have. The other thing that I do in these early stages of OOTP 24 is I do end up going and just having our scouts scout everybody. It increases the accuracy very, very slowly. Clearly these players are all over the world at this point. As you can see, there's a prospect in Germany, Australia, a lot of the familiar countries, but some more esoteric locations also, Brazil, Argentina. So certainly central, focused, on Venezuela and the Dominican and the usual places where you'd expect to see a lot of good prospects from. But it's not the most efficient scouting that we do, but don't really have anything else to have our scouts focused on right now. Feel like we've got pretty good scouting of our system. We know the major leagues and the minor leagues pretty well after almost 2 years in the game now. So try to get some more information on some of these prospects, and perhaps there will be a diamond in the rough that we didn't invite to our first private training that will end up being deserving of a spot there for us to get to know them better going forward. And we are going to be facing the Twins in this American League Championship Series, so the two best teams in the American League are going to be facing off. You can see that Cole is only injured for 4 more days. In a perfect world, would love to get him a minor league rehab assignment, but it's October 20th. That's not practical. So we're going to put him back on the roster, and presumably he'll be our Game 3 or Game 4 starter. He's been out for exactly a month now since he got hurt on the 20th of September. So it'll be over a month by the time he's back, but certainly feel like we've got to put him right back into the rotation. Hopefully, if we get to a World Series, at least that'll mean he'll have a game under his belt by the time we're pitching in the World Series. But it's not going to be easy to get back there. As I mentioned, the Twins' second best record in the American League. We did end up 10 games ahead of them, but they were actually competing with us for the best record in not just the AL, but the best record in baseball for a good chunk of the season before they kind of faded a little bit down the stretch. Taking a look at the playoff tree right now, the Cardinals upended the Braves, and the Dodgers took out the Mets. So 3 of the 4 teams with home field advantage moved on. Only the Braves, who had the second most wins in baseball and were the only other 100-win team besides us, happened to fall in the DS with home field advantage. And with Cole potentially going to be back, we're actually going to send Andres Chaparro off of the playoff roster, bring Garrett Cole onto it. So we're going to go with 13 pitchers and 13 position players for this ALCS. Not typically the way we run in the playoffs. With the off days, we typically run 12 pitchers and 14 position players. But given the uncertainty around Cole and the fact that it's conceivable that he pitches in Game 3 or Game 4 and goes an inning and ends up exacerbating his injury that he's coming off of, want to just make sure that we have as much insurance as possible. Looking at the rest of the injured list, this is the best team that we're going to be able to put together at this point, because certainly with 3 weeks left and 3 to 4 weeks left for Evan Phillips and Jason Dominguez respectively, we'll not be seeing those guys even if we do make it into a World Series. And right now we've got Cole tentatively set to pitch in Game 3. We'll see what he looks like at that point. We may end up needing to push him back for Game 4. We'll find out whether we need to or not when we see what he looks like. Whether he's fully recovered from the injury or not. Obviously, if he's not able to pitch, he's not able to pitch. Right now, he's obviously out and expect that he'll be out. So, should be our Game 3 or Game 4 starter. That does let us move Dre Jameson out of the rotation into the bullpen. And Nestor Cortez remains our 4th starter. And as we get ready to begin this ALCS, good pitching matchup. Carlos Rodon on the mound for the Yankees. Kyle Wright on the mound for the Twins. Combined was 13-9 between Atlanta and Minnesota. Kind of interesting that Atlanta, a team that won 103 games and was competing for a World Series, would trade a pitcher like that away close to the trade deadline, but I guess they had enough pitching. Was not particularly good in Minnesota with a 6.59 ERA and a 2-5 record for the Twins as they faded down the stretch. So after losing Game 1 of the ALDS at home behind Rodon, certainly hope that we can get this series off to a better start than that 3-1 series victory against Seattle that we just had. And unfortunately, not to be the case. Kyle Wright outpitched Carlos Rodon. We don't get a home run from Aaron Judge for the first time in this whole playoff run. Taking a look at the box score, we took a 1-0 lead. They came back with 2 in the 6th and 2 in the 8th. Rodon was okay. 6 hits, 3 walks, 4 earned runs over 7 1/3. Gomez did the job in relief, but Kyle Wright was better. 6 innings pitched, only 4 hits, 1 earned run allowed. Cantorino and Duran both pitched perfect over their 3 innings of relief, and the Yankees just couldn't get a lot of offense started. Just 4 hits, and other than a double from Rizzo, we got singles from Volpe, Dominic Smith, and Jose Trevino. So not a lot of offense for the Yankees here in Game 1 of the ALCS, and that already puts us behind the 8 ball, so to speak, here as we try to do better than this team did a year ago and get into a World Series rather than falling in the ALCS. We've got Sevy on the mound in Game 2. He's going to have to duplicate what he did last time around and help us win Game 2 down 1-0. Going up against Bailey Ober, 16-5 with a 3.96 ERA. Really good control, nice arsenal of pitches, but he does not have the most movement on his pitches and does have extreme fly ball tendencies. So hopefully we can take advantage of that and get a few homers off of him on the way to a victory. Not the case. We did get a couple of homers from Dominic Smith and Trey Sweeney, but we lost 4-3 as Ober outpitched Severino. Twins jumped on us early and often, 4 runs by the 4th inning. We came back with 3 in the 5th, but that was it. They held the Yankees to 5 hits. The home runs from Smith and Sweeney counted for all the runs. Solo shot from Smith and the 2-run homer from Sweeney, both in the 6th inning. But Minnesota's done a good job with the Yankees' bats thus far. Not a long rain delay, but a rain delay of 24 minutes. Severino was not great. 4 earned runs over 5 1/3. Beeks, Lasaiga, Gomez, and King didn't allow any runs once they came in, but we were already too far behind, and now we are heading to Minnesota down 2-0. The Twins, with the second best pitching staff in the AL, have definitely done a really nice job against us, even though we were almost half a run a game better than them during the regular season. So we were really dominant in terms of our pitching in the regular season and the performance it put up, but at this point hasn't performed to the level that we've needed it to in the playoffs thus far. And as we get ready for Game 3, Cole still suffering from that sore shoulder for one more day. So we are going to go ahead and make sure that Cortez and him are swapped in our rotation. And when we look at the playoff coverage, it says Cole, but clearly we're not going to be going with Cole today. So it'll be Cortez going for the Yankees up against Chris Paddock for Minnesota. 9-8 with a 3.15 ERA. Nestor Cortez is going to have to come through for us here. And we do get a 7-4 victory in Game 3. Peraza with a home run, Judge with a home run, Carlos Correa with a dinger for the Twins. Take a look at the box score, and looks like the big blow was that 3-run home run by Peraza in the 4th inning. Gave us a 6-2 lead, ended up winning 7-4. Cortez, quality start, 7 hits and a walk over 6 innings, 2 earned runs allowed. Marinaccio was not good in relief, but fortunately Beeks and King stabilized things. And we'll see if now with Cole back, coming off of that injury, what exactly can we get from him in Game 4. So Cole is now healthy, allegedly coming off of that sore shoulder. Unfortunately for me, manager Aaron Boone controls all the team strategy settings. I would love to put him on a pitch count here in his first game coming off of that injury to just hopefully get the most we can out of him, but also reduce the chance for it to go really bad on him. But unfortunately, Aaron Boone controls that, and I don't. So hopefully he will use him wisely. Joe Ryan going to be on the mound for Minnesota, 9-8 with a 5.05 ERA. A bit of a down year for him compared to what he had done the 2 previous seasons for the Twins, but still a good solid pitcher, and he'll be pitching at home. See what Cole can give us. We lose 4-1. Cole gets the loss. Got another homer from Peraza, but the Yankees are now on the brink of losing in the ALCS for a 2nd consecutive season. We did score our only run in the 1st inning, that solo homer by Peraza. After that, it was all Twins. Cole did end up giving us 102 pitches, 7 2/3 innings, 10 hits, no walks, 4 earned runs, struck out 6. Doesn't look like he had any injury issues. He did have a balk during the game. Ryan was good for them, though. 2 hits and 2 walks scattered over 5 1/3 innings. And then they got Hentges, Duran, and Minter on in relief. And those 3 players combined over the last 3 2/3 innings allowed just 1 walk and no hits. So 2-hitter against the Yankees offense. Got Peraza's hit to lead off the game, and then after that the Yankees got just 1 more hit the rest of the way by Dominic Smith. So tough position for the Yankees. Dominic Smith, who got that hit, is a guy who, if we had Stanton and or Dominguez healthy, probably wouldn't even be in the lineup, but it is the situation that we're dealing with at this point, and it's good to have Cole back. But we are also in a situation now where got to win 3 in a row to be able to move on to the World Series. So a great regular season is in potential of, don't want to say coming up for naught in the playoffs, since we did at least win the ALDS to get to the ALCS, but certainly disappointing. Lost the first game of the series with Rodon on the mound. We've lost both games that Rodon has pitched now, although he's been respectable in the playoffs. Certainly time for him to earn some of that huge contract with the Yankees in a clutch spot right here, and at least get us back to Yankee Stadium for at least 1 more game. And he did get the job done. 4-0 victory. Got a homer from Clay Bellinger. Rodon on the mound. We're still certainly up against it. We got all 4 of our runs in the 2nd inning. We scattered 4 hits today, so Rodon was excellent. 4 hits over 8 innings. Struck out 9. Gomez, who's been very good in the playoffs, struck out the side in the 9th. Mentioned that we got the homer from Bellinger. Looks like we also got run scoring doubles from Volpe and Sweeney. So it's not over yet for the Yankees. We're going to need to win 3 in a row to move on to the World Series, but we've got one of the 3 in the books now, and we're going home for certainly one more game and hopefully 2 more games to finish out this 2024 ALCS. And we're now back home for Game 6 of the series. Ober outpitched Severino in Game 2 in New York. Certainly would hope that we can get a win from Sevy here on our home turf. Not to be the case, though. The Yankees fall in the American League Championship Series for a second consecutive season. Did get a homer from Austin Wells. They got a homer from Joey Gallo. I'm sure he enjoyed doing that in the Yankee Stadium to help clinch the return to the World Series for the Twins. They took a 5-0 lead on us early, so Severino was not good. We got a couple runs back in the 5th, but the Yankees offense really disappeared largely this entire offseason, postseason, but particularly in this series with the Twins. Did get 8 hits today, so it wasn't horrible, but it was not good enough. Severino was definitely not good enough. 6 hits and 2 walks in 3 innings. Got some pretty solid relief after that from Beeks, Marinaccio, and Holmes. But it was too little, too late for these Yankees. Do think that maybe the postseason might have went a little differently if everybody was healthy, but those are the breaks. And for a second consecutive season, the Yankees, after winning the American League East, are ousted in the American League Championship Series. And it looks like it's going to be the Twins up against the Cardinals in the 2024 World Series. So a 94-win Twins team that won the AL Central against a 92-win Cardinals team that made the playoffs as the top wild card and has won 3 consecutive playoff series to get to the World Series. And the Minnesota Twins end up as your 2024 World Champions, winning against the Cardinals pretty easily, 4-1. So things kept getting easier for the Twins. 3-2 win over the Astros. They took out our Yankees 4-2 and then dominated the Cardinals 4-1. I am sure that the Homer Hankies were flying in Minnesota during that victory over the Cardinals in the World Series. And as the offseason begins, we're going to have some decisions to make. Anthony Rizzo, we've got a team option for him at $17 million. Garrett Cole did not opt out of the contract. Thought there was a chance coming off of that big season, but again, for a guy in his mid-30s to have $36 million a year guaranteed for the next 4 seasons, probably not the worst thing in the world. Clearly, Cole didn't think he could do better on the open market, so he sticks with the Yankees. Reviewing our season goals, Hal Steinbrenner happy with our record, happy that we improved our batting average, haven't worked much on increasing profit. We've done a good job improving our farm system, still wants us to work on our draft record, wants us to continue pursuing a championship. Overall, he's happy with our performance on the goals, good with our performance overall, but wants to see more from the team. Wants a championship next year. Of course he does. But he cut our budget pretty significantly to $316 million. I believe we were at $330 million. Yeah, so he cut our budget by $14 million. And you can see we've got negative money available as we get ready for the off season. Certainly the team option on Rizzo would free up a fair amount of that money. And then we've got relatively expensive arbitration decisions that we're going to need to make on Nestor Cortez, Jose Trevino, even Michael King's getting up there a little bit with the money he's expected to make. So going to have a lot of decisions to make as far as the off season. It's obviously a very good roster that led the majors in wins this year. Rizzo, I like as a player. I love the captain personality. But quite honestly, though, a guy who's in his mid 30s, 225 hitter, he was below average this year in terms of his OPS plus and his WRC plus, only 0.6 of a win above replacement. And we do have another captain personality with Volpe on the team. So as much as I'd like to have him back, and I think there is maybe potential that we'll be able to sign him back for less than 17 million coming off of the season that he's coming off of. With the financial situation that we have with Rizzo, I am inclined to decline that option. The only reason I'm not going to do it right away is that between now and our next episode, I'm going to just start shopping the likes of Giancarlo Stanton, or I guess I can shop him right now and let you see what I'm thinking about. Clearly, if we're able to get Stanton's contract off the books, that would help us significantly in terms of maybe being able to keep Rizzo around at his number. I'm just going to see what, if we keep 70% of Stanton's contract, what, if anything, is out there. And there's nothing. So that's brutal. If we pop it up to 80%, still nothing. So that definitely limits our payroll flexibility a bit because Judge is obviously going to be here. Cole has opted in. Rodon we want back. Stanton is and Severino who we want back. The three big pitchers plus Judge. Stanton is the guy who, given his age, given his fragility, given that he's coming off an injury, and given that all he can do is hit homers and walk a bit now, would love to get out of that contract, but it just doesn't seem practical. So since we are probably going to be stuck with that contract, we are going to decline the option on Rizzo. We may even need to move on from Nestor Cortez, unfortunately. $11 million for a pitcher who's definitely above replacement level. Getting high. Trevino's contract also getting high, but I think we probably want that brilliant glove back to help our pitching staff. So we've got some interesting decisions that we're going to need to make this off season, but as we try to adapt to the fact that even after a 104 win season, making it to the ALCS and making a $40 million profit, even though the final balance ended up being minus 11 million, would have to say that I am a little disappointed that our budget's been cut back so much and we have to make these tough decisions. But I think that we may not be done with Rizzo. If he's willing to sign for less than 17 million, we would keep him back, but certainly need to avoid that last contract year at this point. And that at least gets us closer to being even in terms of the money available. I guess we can temporarily pull a little bit out of scouting and development, so at least we've got money on the books to potentially play with a little bit as we get closer to free agency beginning and we think about potentially taking on some trades. So that'll free up a little bit of cash. Obviously would love to get scouting and development back up before the season starts, but at least we've got money to play now if we decide to approach Rizzo to bring him back. Would be interesting to see what he thinks if we offer him a contract right now. Yeah, and he's definitely looking for less money than that 17 million. So it looks like he's looking for $8.5 million a year over 3 years. So potentially, we could reunite with him at a much better price point for the Yankees, but also giving him a little more certainty into his years in the late 30s. We'll have to see what the arbitration situation looks like for the Yankees, what the potential free agent market looks like, and we'll spend some time going through all of that and also reviewing our top performers from this 2024 season and finding out if Aaron Judge can win a third consecutive MVP and or Garrett Cole can win the Cy Young Award for the Yankees when we get into award season. So it will be another busy episode in our next look at the Yankees. Until then, thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.